Hey, welcome back. Today's guest, Philip Hasheider, a Wisconsin farmer, writer, and local historian whose near-death experience completely changed his life. Today, he's here to share that extraordinary story with us. He also explores that experience more deeply in his book, 6 Minutes in Eternity. Without further ado, please welcome Philip to the show. Hi, thank you, Philip, for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. Enjoyed listening to your story. I heard your story on another interview and then I read your book. So can you tell me a little bit about you before this experience happened to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind comments. I appreciate them. And I also appreciate being invited to speak with you and to your audience. To be a little bit succinct, I grew up on a dairy farm. Well, it was a multi-animal farm, pigs, cows. And I've lived most all of my life on a farm, uh, especially in the area that I grew up in. And so my expertise, if you will, is agricultural topics. And yes, I have written a number of books for several publishing companies about agricultural topics and how-to books on raising animals for small holdings and that sort of thing. So those were quite distinct from some of the histories I've written, local histories, a couple of family histories. And this topic of my near-death experience was something that took me a long time to understand, and it took a longer time to write because trying to find human words to explain some of the things I experienced is really difficult because in that eternal dimension that I was in, there is no language. There is no vocabulary. It is all energetic transference of knowledge and sensation and feelings, if you will. You want to put a human word to it. And so translating that into something that another person I'm speaking with, such as you or your audience, is a challenge. And I have to ask them to kind of expand the word because every word has its own vibration. It has a certain length, it has a certain width, it has a certain depth. And the same word used by one person may not mean the same thing to the person that's being spoken to. That's just human interaction. So when I explain my story, I ask people, particularly you and your audience, to open up your hearing and your visualization of the things that I explain. That will help. I think it will help most people get the essence of what I'm trying to say. Because everything that I do explain about my experience is much deeper than what I could possibly explain in human terms. So that's really the background to this. I never set out to write a book. I sat down to collect my thoughts from time to time as they would pop into my head because my recovery was pretty long from the
Yeah.
standpoint of a couple of years before I was fully integrated back here. Physically, I left the hospital within 4 days, and I was physically fine. There was no damage to my heart. So we can start there, and
Yeah, I love how you tried to explain just with, it's so difficult, you said, with words. I've heard that so much to describe these experiences, and words have limitations on them. Just the word means something different from one person to another. So that's just even a little, just to give people just a little understanding of how hard it must be to go through and explain, this experience that you had.
Well,
I can't
if you
imagine.
if you sit and think about it, all words have vibrations,
Mhm.
and the what we would refer to as the negative words have a lower vibration than those that have what we call higher words. For instance, love, hate. Take say the two things. They each have a different vibrational level, but hate is much, much lower. It's much denser. It does not rise to the level of love. And also imbued with those two words are all of the feelings that have been passed down to us over generations. Because that word sticks around and is transferred from generation to generation in the way it's used.
Mhm.
So that's more of a inner feeling of me now after my experience. Now, your audience, anyone can take it or leave it. That's fine with me. But I know what my experience was
Yeah, and
and how I understand it. And that's what's important to me. I'm just trying to
right.
share it with anyone and not tell anyone else what to believe.
Sure.
You can take
Sure.
it or leave it. And that sounds a little crass, but that's the way I feel. I'm going to offer what I experienced, and it's up to you to decide, uh, anyone out there to decide whether or not this is something they can work with. Does it resonate with them? And it all started in a single morning. When I woke up that early October morning, I had no idea that I would be a completely different person by the end of the day. I had no inkling that my day on the farm was going to be any different than the day before. And I should have realized it because of what happened with our cattle. We pasture graze beef cattle on our farm. Now, number 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we had a dairy, but we transitioned into beef for a number of reasons. So we were working with a pasture grazing program. So we have this large, almost 60-acre pasture for them to be in. Every morning I would go out to check them. And every morning I could get close to them. I could get up to them, talk to them, scratch them, pet them, walk amongst them, no problem. Well, this particular morning was different. Almost the moment I stepped foot out there, I was walking towards them, and all of the cattle were lying down on the ground in the soft grass. And one of them saw me coming, and she jumped up and she perked her ears, which is an alert reaction from animals. Doesn't matter the species. And she looked at me for a second or two, and then took off running across the field and stopped about 200 feet away. Well, that got the attention of everyone else that was lying on the grass, and they all jumped up and they all turned to look at me and they all ran and joined her. Now, that had never happened before, not the morning before, and subsequently, not even the morning. Well, the next morning, I was able to go out and see them. Well, at that point, it was in the presence of my wife because she wanted to make sure I came back.
Yeah.
But there was something different that morning. I didn't pay any attention to it. But looking back on it, something got their attention, and I don't know what it was. It could be they didn't recognize me because I was in some form of transformation. Maybe they saw some sort of energetic halo around me that I did not experience or
Right.
recognize myself. Something about them caused an alarm, and they didn't know what to do with it. Well, watching them run away, none of them had any issues physically that I had to deal with. So I just shrugged my shoulders, turned around, and walked back to our farmyard. Well, coincidentally, that morning we had made arrangements with a local business in our village, which is 12 miles from our farm, to have the tires replaced on our car. So I normally, when I went into what we call our town, I would take my gym bag with me because I had been uh, exercising at our local hospital's fitness and rehab building, which is supervised. And I was trying to lower my blood pressure, which had over the previous 4 or 5 months had risen unexplainably for some reason. And it had started going down over that time. And so I would go in 2, 3 times a week to do an hour's worth of exercise. Well, I approached town and I was way ahead of schedule to go get the tires changed. So instead of turning right to go there, I figured, well, I could go for a quick workout and then I could get back to get the tires changed. So I turned left and I drove to the hospital's rehab fitness room. I parked the car, went downstairs, changed clothes, came back up, said hi to the 2 or 3 staff people that were in the room, did some stretches, went to the arm curl machine bench, and I did 20 modest arm curls, no problem. I stood up, and the strangest thing happened because I remember looking down at my 2 forearms because they were tingling like they had fallen asleep.
Mhm.
And I thought, this is really unusual. And that was the last thing I remember for over 8 hours.
Wow.
And so one moment I'm standing next to the bench of this arm curl uh, unit, and the next moment I'm lying dead on the floor. But I didn't know I was dead because all of a sudden I found myself in what I'll call the biggest amphitheater I'd ever seen in my entire life. I was floating, but I was not floating on water. I was floating on what I will describe in human terms as some sort of a raft. And I was bobbing up and down, and I was floating on energetic waves that were coming towards me. And not only were they coming towards me, they were passing through me. And it was like I was being enfolded with this warmth, this love, this welcome, uh, using human words of almost an ecstasy. I mean, it was great. I mean, it just felt so comfortable. And I didn't think anything odd about it. And so when these were passing through me, I was looking at what I thought were my hands, but they weren't hands. They were interstitched fibrous fiber energetic elements that made it look like my hands.
Mhm.
And at this point, I still did not know anything had happened to me before. It just, I was here. I was in this dimension that expanded. We usually think of an edge of something, but this expanded through the whole vision in front of me. And when I looked up to this area, there was this golden, reddish, glowing, pulsing eminence. It was like you packed 10 million suns into this, but it wasn't hot in the sense that I could reach out and touch it. And it felt like it wanted me to merge with it, to meld with it, to become part of it. But it was welcoming. It was non-judgmental. It was loving. It was everything positive you can say about being accepted into another home. Well, I looked at the surface of this and I saw all of these little sparks, billions, gazillions, whatever term you want to
Yeah.
use, all over the surface of this, shooting out from it and going off into all directions that a human mind can possibly think of. And it didn't even occur to me that this was odd. I just felt like, huh. I'm home. I didn't know where home was, but I felt welcomed here, like I've never been welcomed here in this dimension. So observing this, I turned to my right as I remember it, and as we understand right, left, front, back, to see what was off to the side. And what I saw, I can best explain as seeing an infinite multitude of universes and dimensions suspended out in this eternal dimension. And this is where I'm going to ask everyone to think of human terms and expand your mind, because it would be like taking our universe, everything we know about it, the billions of light years across, one way, up and down, however you want to define it, all of the planetary systems, all of the galaxies, all of the stars, the black holes, you name it. And you compress all that down into a single sheet of paper. And then you take it and you suspend it out here in
Mhm.
this eternal dimension. And then you take another one and you put it right next to that one. And you take another one, put it right next to that one. Yet each of these contain their own width and depth that we understand this to be, but it's all lined up. Yet each one of these universes and dimensions had an energetic filament that reached up and attached itself to what I will refer to as a spider web-like matrix that surrounded this golden, glowing, pulsing energy.
Mhm.
And it too was pulsing, welcome, love, knowledge, acceptance into each one of these. And the thing I remember is thinking, not only is this really neat, this isn't odd at all. I mean, it just felt like, yes, this is where everything is created. This is what I'm seeing. This is the source of all creation, to find a word. This is the divine creator. This is the God essence, however you want to refer to or acknowledge as a supreme knowledge, a supreme love that has existed forever, as we can grasp that concept, and
Right.
will always be. And I was part of it. Well, after seeing that, I thought, okay, I want to look behind me to see where all these waves are going, because they kept all this time, they were just flowing through me. So I turned around as we understand front and back here in this dimension. And what I saw was eternity. And that's because the emulsion of infinity acted like a magnifying glass, so that the farther I looked, the clearer everything became. And there were all of these lines of universes and dimensions within this space going up and down. Um, we are not the only one. So I knew at that point my essence of where I was that I was sitting in the front row seat of observing God's creation, divine creator's creation, however you want to acknowledge that, or even not acknowledge it, because it is. Even though your human mind may not be able to accept it, it is. It is there.
Mhm.
Now, this is not a religious proclamation by me. This is what I saw and brought back with me. And we can talk about that in a little bit, why I know that. So I'm sitting floating, observing all of this, and all of a sudden I'm not. I'm gone. The whole vision is gone. And after looking at uh, the EMT reports and the hospital reports, and the people were frantically, furiously working on restarting my heart, that timeline is about when they restarted my heart. Now, all of the time that I was in this dimension, I had no idea that my body was lying flat on the floor and that there were a dozen EMT people, staff members, furiously trying to get my heart started again with the AED shocks. And I, had I known that, even if I had known that, I couldn't have called them and told them, don't worry, don't bother. I'm really good where I am. This is great. Um, I couldn't tell them not to feel bad if they didn't restart my heart because I didn't know I had died. So it took another 8 hours in our time for me to become cognizant of my surroundings here in this dimension. And the reason I can pinpoint that is when I came to,
Hmm.
okay, uh, I looked at my feet and there was my wife, Mary, standing there, rubbing them. And I said, you can't be here, because she had been at her job away from the farm when I saw her go in the morning. So I knew she wasn't at home. And there was some guy standing next to me, asking me questions, and it got tiring. You know, he kept asking me. Apparently, I was told later to try to engage me and see if I was okay. Well, physically okay, maybe
Right.
not mentally ready yet, but.
Yeah.
And I paused, and then I saw a clock on the wall and it said 8 o'clock. And I said, that can't be right. And he said, what can't be right? I said, time. I said, it was 11 o'clock. He said, no, 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 no. It's 8 o'clock at night. I said, no, 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 no. That can't be right because time doesn't go backwards, at least not here. And there was this pause, and he said, no, it's 8 o'clock at night, not morning. That was the first indication of what I'm going to describe as interdimensional confusion.
Talk about, in simple terms, in our terms, some extreme jet lag in a
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
but
Well,
but so
yeah,
much more.
it is. It didn't. None of it made sense because it was like I had one foot still in that eternal dimension and another foot trying to find its place here, and none of it made any sense. So I just kept quiet because I couldn't process what had happened.
Yeah.
I first of all, I didn't know anything had happened to me. I did not know I collapsed. I did not know they gave me 3 electric shocks. I did not know I took an ambulance ride. All I knew is that, oh, my wife is standing at my feet. Our son and daughter were in the room, and I knew they weren't home. So at that point, I realized something happened, but I have no idea what it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, they found that I had two blockages in my heart. They put in two stents, but when they did that, everything went back to normal. They did a MRI the next day. Uh, all my vital signs were normal. They were actually they had gone a little bit low, but my blood pressure. But the uh, there was no damage to my heart, even from the shocks. So after I was released 4 days later, went home, and then the questions started coming. First of all, I had been on the longest trip I'd ever taken in 6 minutes. And but I came back with an experience that took me a long time to understand and even longer to explain to anybody. So that's where I was when I came home out of the hospital. Now, Mary would not let me out to do any real work with the cattle. She was afraid I'd get run over, which wouldn't have happened because they were gentle cattle, but she was leery. Um, she wouldn't let me work with equipment because she wasn't sure I'd be able to handle it. So there was quite a time where I wasn't physically able to do a lot. So the big questions came within 2 weeks. Why? Why did it happen? Why did it happen? Where it did? When it did?
Hmm.
Where I had all that help, and not 1 hour earlier when I was out in the pasture and there would have been nobody who would have seen me for 8 hours. So
Unbelievable.
if that had happened there, we would not be having this conversation
No.
at all. So that was the biggest question, why? And I think a lot of people ask why. And so it took me a long time to really understood it. And it wasn't until 8 months later that I was given the answer as to why I came back and didn't stay there, when I would have been just as happy to stay there. Mary wouldn't have been happy with that, but sh- I at that point I didn't know I was married to her anyway. So it it was an interesting experience that I mentioned before. How do I know that I brought it back? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm pretty sure everybody who's listening to this, and you, Katie, have dreams. And you
Absolutely.
usually have dreams at night. And when you wake up in the morning, you may remember snippets of it, but you
Right.
don't remember the whole
Right.
thing, or maybe not even the context of it.
It gets fuzzy.
And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And it dissipates very quickly.
it does. If you don't
And
think about it right away, and even if you do, you lose it.
yeah, it dissolves.
Hmm.
The reason I know my experience was real is because every time I think about it, even now, this is quite a number of years later, I can see the entire sequence of what I was there. And I can still see these things, even now that I'm here. Everything is like in the background of what I'm looking at. And that's not distressing to me. I mean, it's kind of a comfort because it confirms that, yeah, that's what I saw. And it's not because my mind's memory has imprinted it. It's because that came back with me when I returned to this body, which leads me to another thing that I learned, and that our bodies are more than the sum of its parts. By that I mean, when I was standing next to the bench of the arm curl machine, I had all the parts I had when I was lying flat dead on the floor. I had 2 arms, 2 legs, head, 2 eyes, 2 ears. It was the same pie, except for one thing. And that is that inner essence of me that left when my body collapsed and went to this eternal dimension. And that was me riding on these energetic waves. And that when they restarted my heart, when they got it functioning, I couldn't stay there. I had to come back here. And that is how I understand this whole process. And I came back with that information, that experience, which someone has asked me, how long do you think you were there? And I said, centuries, because
Wow.
there is no time. So you have to think of stretching one's existence there to infinity because there is no time there. But I had seen that. And when I came back, it was like, okay, it was like all of this information was tattooed to my soul. And that's what came back. And that was that little spark at one time that went flying out from
Right.
this golden God essence. At some point, that was me. At some point, that was you. At some point, that was everyone who sees this or doesn't see it. And how do I know that? Well, how could I possibly experience that unless it came back with me? Which has now led to another thing like, okay, that means that eventually this body is going to stop again.
Hmm.
But I now know that I'm not dead. Yeah, my body is, because this body is not made for a higher dimension. It wouldn't function there. Just like my spirit, my soul, my inner essence, whatever you want to call it, cannot exist in this lower dense dimension without a human body to carry it around.
Right.
And that's our inner spirit, our inner soul. And we take that wherever we go down here. We're like a transport unit for our spirit while we're here. And when we leave, it gets back on what I call the energetic superhighway, and it goes to another dimension and another experience. Because I think the reason we are here is for our souls to learn lessons. And we take whatever we learn here, good, bad, indifferent, whatever you want to term an experience to be, devastating, exceptional,
Hmm.
we take that with us. And that is part of our learning process. And we get to do it again somewhere else, maybe with the same people we're involved with here. I don't know. And I
Hmm.
can't answer if that's the way it's going to be. But I do know that I will go on to another experience because I've seen it. So the whole experience that I had has changed how I view things, especially about dying. Do I want to die tomorrow? No, not necessarily. I have things I really would like to get to yet and experience and with my family and my friends. And
Yeah.
but if I do go, I mean, I won't know it, but I will be on a different trajectory. So we come here the way I understand it, and this may not be for everybody, but this is the way I understand it. That at some point I was one of those little sparks. And I may have had other experiences that I'm not aware of because this is a small human brain when you compare it to infinite knowledge
Hmm.
in that kind of a dimension that maybe I only have enough information that I can handle.
Right.
So, but my soul is like a library. So it came here. I at some point I chose to come down here and experience it. The essence of me, that soul spirit, that whatever you want to call it, decided, okay, I want to come down here and experience something down here.
Hmm.
So I dropped down. I was born of my parents because that's the way you become a human.
Right.
Um, they raised me. I've now had 74 years of being here experiencing this dimension. And yet, at some point, I'm going to leave it, but I'm not going to die. The inner essence of me is going to live. Yeah, the body's going to slough off. It can't live in a higher dimension, but we do not die. And that, to me, is the hope and the promise, if you want, that we will continue. We will recognize others. I can't say that I saw my family there, but I recognize that there's so much more possibility to what exists beyond our human mind that why can't things be that way? Now,
Yeah.
again, there are people who can say, well, it's a bunch of hooey. Fine. But you'll find out when you leave here that what I've been saying is true. And I know it's true because I was told it was true.
Mhm. And you experience that. It's hard to deny that. I don't really talk about my interest in this field and subject with that many people because when I do, they start to, that people have their own set of beliefs and that's fine. But how did the people around you uh if when you did start talking about this stuff, you probably maybe you had a mix of, some people that, didn't really take it take it very seriously and then others who were interested and some people have a hard time just because we grow up really believing sets of beliefs and those of us who haven't had that experience it's hard to for them to wrap their mind around anything different than that.
Well, first of all, I do believe that people, I, we, we believe what we want to believe
Mm,
because that's more comfortable, that may be
sure.
safer.
Yeah.
Uh, but to allow oneself to examine something that is beyond their comfort level in either their beliefs, their knowledge, whatever, uh, it can be challenging. I understand that. But I know my experience, and I will mention that I mentioned before that it took me 8 months to really get the reason that I came back,
Hmm.
and uh, it was all because my wife Mary was able to write it down. So after I had come out of the hospital and went through some recovery time and getting slowly back, it was 8 months later I came down and the medications were really, really making me struggle with my balance and that sort of stuff. But we got that straightened out eventually. I came down for breakfast one morning and Mary was sitting at the end of our kitchen table and she had a notebook in her hand. And so I plopped myself down in the chair and she waited until I was ready. And then she said, well, would you like to hear what you said last night? And I said, well, I don't remember saying anything. And she said, yeah, you did. And I had a pad by the table next to the bed and I started writing stuff down because I thought it might be important. I said, okay, what happened? She said, well, first thing, you sat up in bed and you were mumbling and I couldn't tell what you were saying. You just didn't make any sense because I couldn't understand what you were saying. And then you stopped, and then you started to shake your head from side to side, saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. She said, she asked me, what don't you believe? And she said, I told her the reason I came back. And she said, well, what was the reason? And she said, I told her the reason I came back was I was told to be a conduit of hope for those who don't have any and don't think there is any. And then there was this pause. And I said, what else? She shrugged her shoulders. She said, that's all you said. And you laid back down and went back to sleep. When she said that, everything made sense. Everything, all the reasons of my why, why it happened where it did, why it happened when it did, why it happened there and not out in the pasture. And I had all of those people available to help because EMTs were just across the street. And it was because I needed to come back. Now, I don't remember asking to come back, but I'm back. So understanding the reason that I'm back has been the initiative for me to do these interviews, uh, to talk to people who are willing to listen, talk to people who are not willing to listen. Either way, it's not that I corner anyone. I mean, that's okay. Uh, Everyone comes to this experience of life and physical death differently. And I think we have to respect that, just as we have to respect the person next to us. I am now convinced that we are here to not only experience this life, but to recognize the divinity within the person next to us, person we meet, the person we don't meet, the person we will never meet, um, and that accept them as being fully acceptable here. We are all here because of love, because of a divine creator's love to let us come. So that really means that we are on an even plane. Our souls are all on the same plane. We may physically want to be above other people.
Yeah.
We may physically want to be better than somebody else
Yeah.
or look down on people, but we're all the same. We are here to lift up those who don't have any hope. And the essence of us accepts that. We may not mentally accept that, but our inner soul does. And that's why two people can have a connection that they don't understand. It's because our inner souls resonate so much with each other. I
That's
guess that's the best way I can put it. I'm not sure how else I could do it.
it's very profound to think about those things. Just uh, connecting with people. I think everybody can relate to what you're saying and our human connection and our feelings and so but the reason that we're here, that's the age old question, isn't it?
Well, it is because a lot human society is built on what came first. I mean, all our lives are basically layered like an onion with things that have happened in past generations in our family. Those traditions, those characteristics, whatever, get handed down from one generation to another. And so we don't generally think about those things. We just react to how our families react. And we
Right.
tend to follow that line because that's what's expected of us. But if you step back and look at the whole picture, what we do here is really small peanuts. I mean, we have we have a planetary system. As far as anyone knows, the only one within this universe, particular universe that we're in, that is unique. However, even though we use time to navigate this, our existence here is really surrounded by eternal time, encompasses it. So we're just a little little figment of this whole universe, and we think we're the big dog on the corner, and that's not true. Which, when you get to that point, you realize that all our pettiness really doesn't make any sense. All our wars doesn't make any sense because we're blowing people up that have
Hmm.
the right to be here in this dimension, just like you or I do, or anyone else viewing this and anyone else not viewing it. We
Right.
all have the right to be here. And for someone else to take that right away, I think is not appropriate.
Right.
But again, that's my my vision, my understanding of
Mhm.
our existence here.
Yeah. And you said things changed for you. I mean, how you know, in your book, 6 Minutes in Eternity, a memoir, I really got the understanding that your long-held beliefs, I mean, just things changed you. You weren't as interested in the things that were once so important to you were, you know, not as important. Material things, you know, things like that, right?
Mhm. Well, and think about it. What are you going to take with you? Okay, let's say you die and you go get put in a coffin. What are you going to take with you? Squat, really, when you think about it. Now, things, I'm not saying people shouldn't have things, but it's how you use them and how much you assign your life to those things, how much you covet those things versus letting go. I was able to release a lot of stuff. Now, people can say, well, he had that experience that makes it easy for him. Well, but it was because of that experience that I was able to do that.
Yeah,
I can't make somebody else have a experience like I had. And I don't want to because
right,
then they would have to leave their body to go do that.
right.
But it makes sense for me anyway. And when it comes down to it, I'm the only one that I really need to satisfy
Mhm.
and live with. I mean, obviously, I have my family and friends, but when it comes down to it, it's each one of us as an individual that can transform ourselves if we want to. Now, there are people that don't want to. Okay, that's their choice. As long as they don't harm anybody else, they can live with it. But
Mhm.
once they step over the line to harm someone else who has also the same right to be here, then that becomes an issue.
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that love and recognizing the divinity in everyone, those we like, those we don't like, those we will meet, those we won't ever meet, is the reason that we're here. And that it's the journey that we are on. And hope is the pathway on that journey that we all take, that we can walk on ourselves and believe that there's something better. When I realized that these sparks that I saw shooting out were at one point me, I understood at that point that each one of us carries the DNA of that, to use a human term, carries the DNA of that creator energy when we come here. That's why we are so much alike. And that's why our spirits, our souls, our inner essence, whatever you want to call it, recognizes another one. Now, we may not physically feel that connection, but they do. And it comes back to how can I remember everything? Because when I'm here now in this dimension and I think about those things I saw and experienced there, I get the same welling up within my body, the warmth, the acceptance, the comfort, the whatever you want to call it, that I had when I was there. So not only did I bring uh, what you might refer to as intellectual information, I brought a sensation essence with me so that it now inhabits me. I don't feel it all the time, but when I do sit back and think about these things, it just wells up again. And I
Wow.
don't know how else to explain that unless it somehow rode with me when I came back, put it
Yeah.
in plain terms.
You've mentioned it in your book even. I read about you feel that connection with the other side and it just kind of comes here and there.
Occasionally, I'll get another insight, and it's not to the point where I'm going to write anything out. I just make note of it so I can think about it later. But I've tried to explain it this way. If we think about our brains, and I mentioned earlier, if we think about our brains as being kind of smallish as far as the storage ability
Sure.
of let's use an example. If I have 6 gigabytes of memory in my brain, and all of a sudden I was given a couple hundred terabytes, use that as an of information and stuff in here, I don't think my brain would be able to handle it. So I do believe that I was given the amount of information that I could handle after I was back here, and that it's slowly peeling off layers of what I experienced. And my 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 experience hasn't changed. It's just that I think it evolves into understanding more what it was about and what
Hmm.
really each of the things I witnessed while I was there becomes some sort of an explanation that I can use here.
Hmm.
That's really what comes back now. And whether or not I remember anything else, I'm not worried about it
Yeah.
because I have enough to, you know, keep me busy.
And it's profoundly changed the way that you view life, people, what happens after we leave here, and just that comfort of knowing that that we go on, that you know, this body isn't us, and we're like driving it, but uh,
Well, I need to explain that even though I had this extraordinary experience, I'm not any different than anybody else here. I I still have to pay my bills. I still have to work. I still have to follow the rules of the road. I wasn't given a special dispensation just because I had that extraordinary experience. I mean, I still have to or engage with people I don't really much care for,
Hmm.
but they are another human that I have to accept, as hard as that can be sometimes. And it's just I don't consider myself anything special. I'm just another human being here who had an extraordinary experience, but I still have to navigate life here
But
until
and
and
the
then I can go do what I want. So uh, I that that is to me that's the hope, is that whatever mistakes I made are not permanent. I'll remember them, but they won't have any action because the things that we consider bad, negative feelings cannot rise. Okay, let me put it this way: fear, anger, whatever other negative term you can
jealousy.
use, jealousy,
Hmm.
greed,
Hmm.
those have such a dense energy that they cannot possibly rise to the level of this eternal dimension, which is all love, all knowledge, all welcoming.
Because
And
everything is about those that energetic fields and vibrations, right? In a
right,
simple term to say.
it's kind of like lead falling to the bottom of a lake.
That's such
And
a
you can't raise that to the level of the surface.
You have such a good way of explaining things so that, you know, uh, me, at least my simple brain can understand in a better way. Such a good analogy.
Well, the what I think happens, and again, this is just my comprehension of it, is that those dense terms that are so layered in everything of our lives because it's been handed down for generations, those things cannot rise because they connect to each other. And when they get to a certain point, they become before they can rise to this higher dimension, they become disintegrated, dissolved,
Mhm.
because it's such a low dense energy. And that's what pulls us down, is those kind of low energetic terms, ideas that go with them, because each word has an idea that's stuffed to it or attaches to it. So you think about the word love and the sensations that are attached to that. And then you think about the term hate and the sensation and actions that are attached to that. Two different things. I mean, two completely different things.
Hmm.
And which one's going to outlast? It's going to be the love.
Hmm.
So that's, I guess that's, uh, I, I could go on and on, Katie, but I don't think we can do that.
I know. So your book, which well, I actually I enjoy listening to books through Audible. So I was
Mm,
really excited to see that your book was on Audible, and
mhm.
whoever the person was that narrated it, which I didn't write the name down, did a fabulous job.
Charlie Wyrick.
Wonderful listening. And so anyway, he did a fabulous job narrating your book, and you just captured my attention from the very beginning of the book. Um, describing the 6 minutes, what can happen in 6 minutes, and your book, which I'm going to include in the show notes and how to find it and stuff. And if for those of you who enjoy listening to books on tape. It's on
Mm.
Audible. I love that because I love to drive and listen. What's next for you? Do you see yourself writing maybe some more books on this topic, because you have so many insights on this that just go even beyond the book that you already wrote? And I think a lot of people, it gives, like you said, it gives so much hope and comfort. Is that of interest to you maybe in the future?
Well, first of all, again, thank you for your kind comments. I really appreciate them. That may be because I've been feeling a slight shift to move to start working on some of the other topics that have surfaced within my thinking about this. So we'll see. I do want to mention, if you happen to notice this photo behind me,
Yes.
and I'm only going to show the book because I want to make a comparison.
I'm so glad that you have the book because I don't have it in front of me
Uh,
to show.
the this Mary, my wife, took this picture out from our front lawn of our farm at a
Oh,
Sunday,
wow.
and the cover of this book was written by, or was designed by, a gentleman in London. Now, as far as I know, he had never read my story, knew what was about, just had the title. And this was his interpretation of it. He had no prompting from my publisher or from me. And
That's really incredible.
well, Mary can tell you this. I had spent months when we were out. She would drive because she didn't trust me to drive yet for about 4 months. When we were out, I was constantly looking for this kind of a color that I had experienced in that dimension.
Wow.
And I, I can't find it here. Uh, close, close. And this one and the one in the cover is about it. If you put them together, that's about as close as I can come. But then the human perception of colors is much different because uh, my perception of what I experienced is like coming through a prism. And so now I have a different lens
Mhm.
to look at, not only here, but in that dimension. I was looking at it differently. I mean, the low wattage of these human eyes can't see what I saw there. So I can only approximate what it was. And that's why from the beginning, that's why the struggle I had with finding the words to convey the essence, the feelings that went with the words. And I'm still not sure I've achieved that,
Mhm.
but I'll keep working on it.
Yeah. And people will keep listening because I think this is just starting back in, the 70s. I've talked to people that, I mean, we didn't even have a term for, right, near death experience, right? More and more people are going to be exploring this topic and interested because your story brings hope to people in for a lot of different reasons, and so it's so great that you're still willing to talk about it and tell it, and hopefully we get to read more from you. A big thanks to Philip Hasheider for being here and sharing his incredible story. A big thanks to you for being here and listening. If you would like to hear more of Philip's story, please do check out his book, 6 Minutes in Eternity. It is a wonderful book. You can find it in the show notes. I'll provide a link. And until next time, take care, stay curious, and can't wait to see you back again.